Welcome to Knicks Fandom. This is an independent New York Knicks fan-based podcast, which was created by fans for fans. The show is hosted by L.A. Blackwell, Danny, and Flo. They'll discuss the issues surrounding the Knicks, the NBA, and various other sports-related topics. Join us. It's going to be a heck of a ride.
And in the words of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Phil Jackson, you're fired. And those are the words that Phil Jackson, former president of the New York Knicks, recently heard after being relieved of the duties this past week. On today's show, we'll delve into the subject. We'll also get into all the new news that's going on with the NBA regarding Paul George, Ricky Rubio trade, as well as the CP3 trade, and some of the major free agent signings that have occurred at the beginning of the Fast and Furious offseason. We'll also briefly talk about the season-ending NBA awards that were recently given out, which Russell Westbrook was named MVP of the league. We have a lot on our plate, so get yourself settled in, relax, and enjoy. This is episode 30 of our podcast doing Knicks Fandom. As always, I'm your host, L.A. Blackwell. Hope all our listeners out there are doing well. As usual, I'm joined by my co-host, Flo. How are you doing, Flo?
L.A., I'm very good today, man. How you doing today?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. We got a lot to talk about, man. A lot to talk about. Also great to be joined by my fellow coach, Danny D. How you been doing, Danny D?
I'm good, L.A. What's going on with you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We back here. We ready to talk about things. But before we get into it, I want to give a big shout out to our listeners out there. Y'all definitely show us a lot of love in our most recent episode. We truly appreciate it. Keep listening, keep sharing episodes, and keep commenting. Let's keep it going, all right? But first thing first, fellas, we have to talk about the recent departure of Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, after originally signing a 5-year, $60 million deal, was given a going-away present of $24 million by the Knicks. I still don't know why they re-signed him for the last 2 years, but that's neither here nor there at this point. And after being president of the Knicks and amassing an abysmal 80 and 166 overall record under his tenure, no playoff appearances despite his 11 rings, no major NBA star free agent signings. If anything, he actually alienated NBA stars with the likes of Carmelo Anthony, Kristaps Porzingis, as well as the Cleveland Cavaliers superstar LeBron James. 1,200 days he worked for the Knicks and made $50,000 a day. Suffice to say, the Knicks did not get their money's worth, and the fans definitely didn't get the solid foundation and respectable NBA team that they were hoping for as well. As we all stated that, basically, that Phil Jackson had to go. Heck, Flo even wrote an article on our Facebook page about it. So make sure to check that out when you get a chance, listeners, if you haven't checked it out already. But in any case, Phil's finally gone, guys. So starting with you, Dan D, what are your initial thoughts regarding the Knicks parting ways with Mr. Phil Jackson?
Man, I got hoodwinked, pulled a wool over my eyes and bamboozled, man. I felt abused and heartbroken. This is ridiculous, man. Of course I'm happy Phil left, but how Phil do us like that, man? Phil did us dirty. He knew he wasn't going to stay. He knew he didn't want to do what he had to do. Dolan had no other choice but let him go, but I'm happy that he left. But damn, man, it's basically saying, why pay for the cow when you can get the milk for free, brother? He did us dirty, guys. I'm upset. I'm happy that he left, but I'm look at the aftermath, what he caused, and the disarray this franchise is in because of Phil. And we gave him a going away gift. I don't know what to say, man. He done drove my car and gave back the car with no gas in it and left us on E.
Oh man, that's pretty much where we at right now. Thank you, D. What about you, Flo? Your $60 million intern is gone. So what you got to say about that, Flo? What's your initial thoughts?
Number one, good riddance. Number two, I'm very disappointed that Mr. Dolan didn't give me a call. I would have picked up Phil Jackson from his apartment and dropped him off from the airport, free of charge.
No, we need Uber, right?
No Uber services. Not at all. I do it free of charge.
I hear you, man. Well, we talked about this for a long time, guys. It was a long time coming. He needed to go. I'm shocked that it actually went down, though, because even early in that morning, we was getting on texts, Flo would tell me about it. And I really didn't believe it. I said, believe when I see it. And it just, all culminated at it really quickly. And we still really haven't heard anything from Phil at this point, just really a press conference release. But he's gone, and right before the free agent signing period, which I'm happy about that. So we hopefully no Noah type deals this year, anything like that of that nature. And basically did a job what we could do with the draft, hoping the best for Frankie. That'd be a good reward for the Knicks fans. And, we take it from there. Where do you think we need to go right now? And who you see as your top choices that you like to see fill the vacant role of the president of the New York Knicks? Starting with you, Flo.
LA, my first choice is going to be Joe Dumars. I wrote an article about him. He's my number one choice. I don't want to go into full details. Listeners, when you get a chance, please go on the Facebook page and read the article. It's definitely a great listen. Second choice, my man from Toronto that's running the Raptors organization, Masai Ujiri. He's done an excellent job in Toronto. He would be my second choice. My third choice would be the assistant GM of the Oklahoma City Thunders, Troy Weaver, whose claim to fame is actually recruiting Carmelo Anthony to the University of Syracuse. He would be my third choice as president of basketball operations.
Okay, I hear that, Flo. How about you, Dan D? Where do you think the Knicks need to go from here, and who would you like to see take that vacant spot?
The vacant spot, I totally agree with what Flo was saying, but I'm also going to throw in maybe a David Griffin. Throw him in there. I don't know. L don't want no part of that, brother.
I was about to jump all over that, bro.
You know what I'm saying? What about a point guard in Mark Jackson? You know, he has a love for the people. And the dark horse I'm probably going to throw in there is Brian Wright. He's the Spurs assistant GM, second in command by R.C. Buford. He's a non-nonsense kind of guy. He's under the Spurs. He got a tutelage, and he can get busy. And with the right people around, he can make a lot of good executive decisions, and he can bring some of that winning mentality from the Spurs to the Knicks.
Okay, I hear that. Only thing I'm worried about a guy like Mark Jackson, I don't want no neophytes no more, man. After Phil, I want somebody who actually has experience in the job. That's the only thing. Go ahead, Danny D.
Oh, no, that's it.
Okay. For me, a lot of the same guys y'all name, but the first guy is, Masai Ujiri. I'll go with him first from Toronto. He's like Danny Ainge to me. He doesn't really make a bad deal. The Knicks know about that firsthand. We got caught up in a lot of deals. Thank you, Andrew Bargnani. Thank you for that. And he'd be my first one. Also, his second guy that's under him is Jeff Weltman. I also wouldn't mind going with him as well. He's like the guy learned under him in Toronto. And, he's got a lot of experience as well. And probably the third guy be Joe Dumars, Flo's favorite guy. Just because I like what he did with Detroit. I know, everybody goes back to the Darko Milicic draft pick. That was a bust. But he also in the executive year that's next year. The first guy, African-American, actually win a championship as a GM and, vice president of a team. So a lot to be said with that. I think he works with a lot of the people. He's a man of the people a lot of times. I heard him speak with a lot of recent interviews and things of that nature. I think actually handle New York, which is a big deal to me. But, anybody but Phil right now is a good look. I really don't want David Griffin just because I don't think he did nothing too special to me. A lot of the moves that he did kind of backfired. Looking back at it, the Deron Williams move, a lot of the other moves he made just didn't work out the way you thought they would, giving extra money to Tristan Thompson. So to me, I'm like, I really don't want him right now. I could do without him. I think he's getting a lot of good pub because he's good with the press and the media. And that's just the way I feel about it. So no thank you, David Griffin. I don't want to see that right now. Could be a good guy, but I just don't want him for the Knicks. And, anything else you want to talk about that regarding Phil Jackson, guys? Start with you, Danny D.
I'm not giving that dude no more press, man. Bye, Phil.
I hear you. We talked about him enough. Anything else you want to add to that, Flo?
Bye, Felicia.
I think that says it right there, guys. All right. And that's just going to get us to our next segment, which is the NBA and Sporting News Weekly Review. And we back. As I stated at the top of the show, there's a lot of major deals going down. And we're going to start with the first major deal that happened recently with the Clippers CP3. He was traded to the Rockets for Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Sam Decker, 2018 first round pick as well. The Water Boy, ticket holders, and a lot of other things, basically. So he's given a lot for CP3. It's also not a lot at the same time. But just looking at this trade overall, what do you guys think about that? Starting with you, Danny D.
For me, I thought the Jimmy Butler trade was bad, but these trades have become an offer right now. For me personally, I think that Houston gave up too much to get Chris Paul. I understand he's an all-star and things like that, but then again, Chris Paul is 32. If he was in his early 25, 26, I can see they gave up a lot. I maybe would have gave up 2 or 3 players and maybe a draft pick for Chris Paul, but all of that, I'm not doing all that for Chris Paul. Not just me personally. He's good, but I don't think he's that good.
I hear you. I hear you. What about you, Flo?
LA, I actually agree with Danny D on this one. The the Rockets gave away too much for Chris Paul, way too much. Clippers won this deal hands down. Chris Paul is aging 32. His body's starting to break down. We know he's a future Hall of Famer, but at the same time, you know, he's been through some serious injuries over the years. Finger, thumb, knee, etc., etc. I honestly think that the Clippers got the best of this deal. When you look at it, when you break down this deal, you got a bunch of players that you can release because they don't have guaranteed contracts. That's one. Two, you get a six-man of the year candidate in Lou Williams. You also get Patrick Beverly, a serviceable and productive point guard where you can start him or let him come off the bench.
Okay.
Great deal for the Clippers, in my opinion. Great deal.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you guys. I think it's addition by subtraction at this point. The Clippers had their window and it's closed, so now it's like you don't want to give this money to to CP3, but you also don't want to have this hanging over your franchise for the next year or so. So this is the best move you can make. Once you know CP3 really wanted to go, and he basically said he only want to go to Houston, so this is the best you could get at this point. I'm actually shocked they got this much since he basically told him this is where he wanted to go after speaking to Harden. And I also heard Trevor Ariza because they're good friends as well, I read. So they got the most they can get at this point for an Asian point guard, like Danny D said, that's on his way out. And also, you don't have to give this big money to this guy. You don't want to get locked into these contracts anymore. That's the biggest thing to me. And I'm going to talk about that Blake Griffin thing as well as we go further along the show. So to me, I think it was a good deal. It was the best you could do at this point. I just want to move on to the next major trade that involved Paul George. He was traded for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. And I'm trying to think what you guys think about that overall. Starting with you, Flo, this time.
I was surprised this deal went down, but then again, I've been hearing some rumors that OKC been trying to work on a trade with Indianapolis for months. So I was definitely surprised that they actually pulled the trigger. I think the reason why Indiana made this deal is because they wanted to make sure that they didn't want to see Paul George 4 or 5 times a year if they had moved him to Boston. Made more sense for them to move him in the West Coast. At least they only get to see him twice a year.
Yeah,
In regards to Indiana, for some reason, they definitely feel like Sabonis will be a rotation player. And they like Oladipo because he went to college at a University of Indiana. So he's got a nice following over there. But in my opinion, when you look at Victor Oladipo's numbers, I don't think he's an NBA starter at this point in his career right now. I honestly believe that he's an NBA six-man.
I hear you. It's hard to judge right now. He really didn't have a real opportunity looking at the way this team was set. They didn't know how to use him when he first got there. And also with Russell Westbrook playing so many minutes and everything dominated through him, it was hard for him to really get his shots in that offense to me. So if anything, the numbers are actually going up each year, so that's the way I look at it. He's a good young player. He actually locked up for a couple of years, so I actually like the move on their part. What you think about Danny D?
For me, I ain't like the move for Indiana. Only the fact that Oladipo, he has $84 million left on that contract. The thing is, you got those two players, but you saying Paul George is an all-star, you got two players. Once again, I thought the Jimmy Butler trade was horrible. This is horrible too, because I can see they don't want to deal with him going to Boston, things like that. But if Danny Ainge is going to give me some draft picks and a player, I'm taking it. I don't want Oladipo's contract. But he has $84 million left on that contract. $84 million. Actually, now you think about it, OKC rents Paul George and they lower their cap space because Oladipo's contract is way more than Paul George.
True, but the thing I heard was Danny Ainge was only offering Avery Bradley and maybe what's the other guy? That small forward.
Marcus Smart?
No,
Jaylen Brown.
No, the other guy. The supposed super defender that's supposed to stop LeBron, but really can't anymore. Crowder. They were only offering Crowder and Bradley. They really wasn't trying to get this Danny Ainge you're dealing with. You gotta remember that. This guy don't want to give anything away, man. So he was trying to offer that. That was the only thing I really heard because they're not really trying to sign Bradley back for the big money. So that's why he was trying to give him in a deal. So if that was the case, I'm not going to help Danny aging him out. Same reason I'm not going to help out Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron out, which I don't understand why teams keep doing that. So if that's the case, and that's what I was going to get, I'd rather have Oladipo over that. I mean, at least he's a young player you can build around, considering a lot of people a lot of people do not want to go to Indiana, you know. And plus, you're going to have a lot of money left if Paul George going to resign anyway. So, I mean, I get it from that respect. And also, it's a bonus. Like I said, that's a guy we talked about before. I know you liked him a little bit, Danny D. So if you actually think you could get something out of him, I kind of understood where they was coming from. And once again, these players are handcuffing these teams. Once you come out and say your agent says I'm not signing back with these teams are handcuffed. Nobody's going to give you a lot of money. Paul George is leaving in a year, basically, unless he's super happy wherever he goes. Unless he going to the Lakers. So that's what everybody keeps saying. So unless you make him super happy, nobody's going to give you a lot for a 1 year rental. And when you put that out in the public like that, these teams are handcuffed at that point. And you also had 1 year left. Double whammy right there. So to me, they did the best they could looking at that, especially you didn't want to put them in the same conference, you know. Cool. And another deal that went through was Ricky Rubio. Your man Flo was finally traded for a top 14 protected 2018 first round pick via the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he was traded to the Utah Jazz. So what do you think about that deal? Starting with you, Flo. I know that's your main man, Ricky Rubio.
Ricky Rubio is a talented point guard, one of the best defenders in the NBA. The problem with him is he can't shoot a lick. And I think with Coach Tom Thibodeau, who's also the president of basketball operations in Minnesota, for some reason, he just can't stand Rubio. He wanted him out of there, and he got rid of him quickly. He was able to get something back in return, which was a draft pick. But the thing I don't understand is he was actually cheaper than the player that you actually signed via free agency, which I know, LA, you'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was some weird stuff, too, because you actually signed Jeff Teague. Unless you really didn't like Rubio, like you said, I didn't see the big reason to go with Jeff Teague at that point. I mean, I don't think he's a better defender. He could shoot the ball a little better, but I didn't see the huge upgrade why it's worth spending more when you could just get Rubio without even giving the pick. So I don't really understand that part. What you thought about Danny D?
Hey, man, like I said, look like it's more personal to business than me, man. Rubio, cool guy. Listen, don't know you personally, brother, but I told you had to go. But like you said, with the Jeff Teague thing, I'm iffy on Jeff Teague too. Because with Jeff Teague, you paid him that money we're gonna talk about later in the show. I guess so, but Jeff Teague is inconsistent and he can't defend. He can't defend nobody. At least I give Rubio that. He's a way better defender than Jeff Teague.
And he had injury issues as well, you know. So I didn't get that. I didn't get that either. You saying something, Flo?
I honestly believe this trade favors more Utah. I think Utah got the best of the deal with Ricky Rubio. You get him under contract for 2 more years. So it's a good deal. Plus, you don't have to worry about forcing yourself trying to re-sign George Hill. You got your point guard locked in now. So you're not killing yourself trying to give George Hill a lot of money. You got Ricky Rubio on a very decent contract.
No, very true. And like you said, that big thing was that they're trying to keep Hayward. And you needed a point guard that at least make Hayward so at least is a point guard that's still going to be here to pass him the ball. So that's a big thing, especially Joe Hill decides to make that move. And was having a little contract disputes anyway. So you lock that up, like you said, guys going to be here for a couple of years and, you know, at least give you a Band-Aid right now and free agency period. At least it makes Hayward think second about leaving. So, you know, right now that's where they at. And I just want to jump into some of the notable recent free agent signs, starting with Blake Griffin, who re-signed with the Clippers for 5 years and $173 million. And, you know, we just go back and forth, vice versa, guys, and just do a quick brief, you know, review of what you think about each one of these signings. Starting with you, Flo.
I think with the Clippers, LA, they should have broken up that team. I don't know why they gave Blake Griffin a 5-year contract. This guy's, you know, his reputation as injury prone. That's number one. Number two, I hate to say this, no disrespect to Blake Griffin, but you are soft, man. You're really soft. You got exposed by Serge Ibaka. I said this numerous times in previous podcasts. He got exposed by Serge Ibaka when Ibaka was playing with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Soft like Keith Van Horn, soft. Like toilet tissue, soft.
Calling the brother shaman. All right, man. I hear that, Flo. But is he soft? That's the question. What do you think about Danny D and Blake Griffin signing back?
Yeah, Blake Griffin. They should have did that, but I can see they was going with, you know, They have to have somebody to come to the Clippers. They signed Blake for 5 years, $173 million. Hey, ain't his money. He's just giving out the money to have him stay. And, hopefully he can attract somebody to come to the play for the Clippers. We got to sell these seats, man. I got to pay for my Maybach and my yacht and stuff like that, brother. Come on, guys.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I'll agree with Flo with this one. Steve Ballmer worth $31.5 billion. He can take a little L for a couple of years. I'm not putting this franchise back. Once CP3 was going, that was a good reason to tear this thing down. And given that type of money, Blake Griffin was often injured. And he's not that young guy anymore. He doesn't even have the hops he used to. He's not a first-tier player to worth that money to me. And also he had the issues, outside the court with issues with some of their personnel. Just start fresh to me at this point. I don't think people paying a ton of money to see Blake Griffin. But I get what you're saying, Danny D. You got to have somebody there to make people show up. But to me, I saw something Bill Simmons said, and I agree. And he basically said, this is Amari Stoudemire all over again. I'm not going to sign him back if I'm looking at with Phoenix the way they did. They let him go. He had one good year, and after that, his knee was done. And the Knicks signed him, and you saw what happened with that. I mean, I'm doing the same thing that Phoenix did. I'm letting him walk. But I'm not going to sign him back and hope for the best and hope he stay healthy and put everything on his back. You don't have a good point guard the same way as you have CP3. This dude's a pick and pop player at this point. So I definitely wouldn't resign. I said, thank you for your services, Blake, but you got to go, brother. That's it. And I'd have moved on from there. And, just basically look at some other players that got signed. I want to talk about real quick, Patty Mills. What did y'all think about that? $50 million for 4 years to the Spurs. Starting with you this time, Danny D.
I think it was decent. Patty can play. He's a good backup point guard. And he started in the playoffs too. Patty played good. That's a good pickup for the Spurs. Patty's been loyal to the Spurs and things like that. That's a good pickup. Patty can play.
Okay. How about you, Flo?
Wow, that's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money. I mean, I'm happy he's going back with the Spurs. He resigned. That's a lot of money, though. A lot of money for Patty Mills.
I think of the same thing. Unless I would have waited and see if I could get George Hill for that same amount of money, because I'd rather have George Hill than Patty Mills. He kind of got exposed during the playoffs. And, he's really one-dimensional. I don't like those one-dimensional players a lot like that. So if I could got George Hill instead for that same type of money, I would have did that instead. I'd have waited. If not, then like you said, Danny D, he knows the system, he knows Pop, and he's a good player. But I just thought that was a lot of money to get Patty Mills, especially with 4 years, too.
But you got to think about it, too, guys. Did you remember George Hill? He said he want max money.
Oh, man, he on that same thing Memphis guy was on. I'm not giving him that money.
That's what he said. He said he's not regular money. He said, that's cool. That's cute. He said he wants max money.
Okay. Once I heard that, then I would have went with Patty Mills, too, if that was the case. So I'm not giving that to George Hill.
Yes, sir.
Well, D, that's probably the reason why George Hill's still a free agent.
Price itself out. We'll see. It only take one, though. It only take one team to do that, They say one sucker. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Your favorite guy, I want to start with him, Mr. J.J. Redick. What you think about that deal, Danny D?
Come on, man. They overplayed that, brother. $23 million?
Yeah, $23 million for 1 year.
Listen, when I heard that, I went to the gym and got put some socks and shoes on, man. I'm about to go out there and ball and try to get this money out here, man. For a spot-up shooter that can't create his own shot, $23 million? I'm going to the gym right now after this show.
Well, he's a great locker room presence. He's a great veteran, man. That's the thing. This young team need that veteran presence for $23 million. How I feel about J.J. Redick. What do you think about it, Flo?
L.A. Gentlemen, all three of us on this podcast have a better jump shot on J.J. Redick.
Oh, man. I always go that far, but this guy disappeared, man.
This guy was exposed by a player, L.A., that just re-signed with Utah. He got exposed by Mr. Ingles. But then again, this is the 76ers. This is the Colangelos running the show in Philadelphia. They don't know what they're doing over there. They really don't know what they're doing over there. Seriously.
No, I definitely wouldn't have did that deal. Even though it's 1 year, that's the only thing I could look at it, and they had the money because Philadelphia really hadn't spent that money yet. They got a lot of young guys on their team. But I know everybody keeps saying he's a great locker room presence, but I heard a lot of whispers in the locker room. This guy wasn't that great sometime during this last season. He's a lot of chirping back and forth with the Clippers and the media, telling a lot of locker room stuff from what I can tell, allegedly. So I don't know. I wouldn't have made that deal. Like you said, he's one-dimensional. He's older. I'm not giving him that type of money. I'd rather go a younger guy who could bring 2 or 3 different skill sets, defensive wise, more rebounding or something. I just thought that was a big deal for him for 1 year. But only good thing for them is 1 year. And that jumps right to Joe Ingles, who re-signed with the Jazz for 4 years and $52 million. I shocked he got that much as well. What you thought about that, Flo, since you brought him up?
The reason why Joe Ingles got all that money is because people saw the playoffs. They saw that he exposed JJ Redick for who he was, a fraud. So Ingram is a player that can play 3 positions: the point, the 2, and the 3. He's a great defender. This is a guy that tried out for the Clippers, and Doc Rivers cut him during training camp a couple years ago. This guy's a very good ball player. The only problem is it's a lot of money for a role player. It's definitely a lot of money. But again, this is the guy who's considered to be Gordon Hayward's best friend. I guess Utah got to do what's best for them, you know.
I was just about to say that. That's the thing I think helped them out as well. Same thing that helped out with the Ricky Rubio trade. They really trying to keep Hayward. So, and they also had the same agent as well. So, you know, I just hope he don't try to do him dirty and say, well, I got my boy his money, so I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So, what you thought about that, Andy?
It's the same thing, and that's what the market is going. You know, that's what the market value is going at. So it's 4 years, 52. Patty got 50. You know, he's a versatile player. Like Flo said, he can play 3 positions. You got to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not that upset about that one. Like you say, he actually brings different things to the party. He actually can play defense very well. He's a good player. You know, nice little move for the Utah. Once again, this is one of them teams that everybody not running and play at Utah. So it's hard to really keep players there. So I kind of understand it from that perspective. And I just want to jump right into Iguodala for the Warriors. He re-signed for 3 years at $48 million. And what you guys thought about that? Starting with you, Danny D, this time.
It's a good move for Iguodala. I thought he was going to go get a payday. Maybe that's what the highest bidder could have got. 3 years, 48. He knows the system. He has a good role, has a layer foundation. They just won a championship. So he was like, they gave me the money. I thought he was going to go for the max of money, whoever's going to give him the highest bid. But then again, those rings be calling me, man. Those rings be calling me.
Pretty much ring the thing right now. What you do about it, Flo?
I got to say, the smartest guy in the room is Andre Iguodala. Between him and the Golden State Warriors, he's a genius. Because all honestly, I didn't think he was worth that high. I really didn't believe that he's worth that type of money at this point of his career where, you know, he's getting older and older. But again, here's a guy who worked the system and took advantage and exploited it to his advantage. Excellent job by Andre Iguodala. He told Golden State that, you know what, I'm not taking the veteran minimum. So you know what, I'll go out there and start meeting with some teams. He's supposed to meet with the Spurs. He didn't meet with the Spurs. He met with Philadelphia. Philadelphia gave him an offer. Golden State wasn't too happy about it. They said, you know what? Here you go. This is what you want. We'll give you 3 years, 48. Take it or leave it. Iguodala was like, deal.
Pretty much. That's basically what it was. Winning. You know, when you win, everybody wins. He's often injured, but he's a vet. He fits their system well. He can be counted on usually in the playoffs. Didn't have a great regular season, but you paying him for the playoffs and on the championship finals. That's basically why he got the money. At this point in his career, I was actually shocked, like you said, Flo, he actually got so much. But it's hard to get guys that actually can perform in the clutch. And that's the biggest thing about Iguodala. He actually was a finals MVP, you know, not too long ago. And that's basically what they're paying him for. You know, basically stop LeBron, slow him up as they continue to go down this road and keep trying to win championships. So I understood it from that perspective. And anything else I want to say about Jeff T? I know we touched upon it before with 3 years, $57 million. If anybody else want to add anything else to that. If not, we'll just jump to the next guy. Okay. And Galloway, Langston Galloway, he got 3 years for $21 million. I thought that was a lot of money to give to him, Stan Van Gundy. What you think about that, Flo?
Not too sure what Stan Van Gundy's doing over there. Personally, I think he should fire himself as GM of basketball operations and just stick to coaching. That's not a great deal by him. No disrespect to Langston Galloway, but that's a lot of money for a guy who really hasn't had any success since he's no longer with the Knicks.
I agree with that one totally. What you think about Danny D?
Didn't he get cut?
Nah, he just got re-signed.
That was something before he got re-signed.
Yeah, I think for the previous team. I forgot where he was at.
Cut by teams. He got cut by New Orleans, Sacramento. Yeah,
I told you guys we need to go to the gym and start putting these and start shooting around and start getting these fast breaks going on. And he's a journeyman. They said no disrespect to Langston Galloway, but my goodness, they just like you said last year, they just giving money out.
Pretty much, man. That's what we're trying to make sure the fans, listeners, I know it's a Fast and Furious. We just definitely giving y'all a re-up on everything that's going on. And also, Michael Carter Williams, he signed a 1-year deal for $2.7 million with the Hornets. Now, I like this deal. I actually thought it was a can't-miss deal for the Hornets. You got him cheap. And it was a guy I wanted the Knicks to actually pursue. He's actually a guy who was like rookie of the year before. He could play 3 different positions. I was really upset the Knicks didn't try to go after him. I thought it was a nice deal they got. What you thought about it, Flo?
Believe it or not, finally, Air Jordan finally figured out how to run a basketball team. Did a good job in the draft. Drafted Malik Monk. Now, he signs a player that's a low-risk, high-reward, Michael Carter Williams. This guy was trying to learn a lot from Rajon Rondo in Chicago. Problem over there in Chicago, you got guys like Jimmy Butler and D Wade, taking shots at him. It was time for him to move on, and I'm happy for Michael Carter Williams. Shame on the Knicks for not even trying to reach out to him. Shame on the Knicks.
I agree on that one. How about you, Danny D?
It's a great deal, man. Michael Carter, he can ball. Tall, lanky guard. He can defend. He can slow the system, things like that. So yeah, he really can play. I like a deal. I thought he was going to ask for a little bit more, but beggars can't be choosers.
That's true. And what about PJ Tucker? He signed with the Rockets for 4 years at, I believe, $50 million. I know it's a guy who was on your radar, Flo. What you thought about that move?
It was $50 million or $32 million?
$32 million. That was Patty Mills I'm thinking about. My fault. Okay. There you go.
Oh. It's a good deal by PJ Tucker. Great deal by Houston. They did an excellent job. You're getting a veteran ball player that doesn't mind guarding the opposing team's best players. He's a role player, great defender, plays hard, a veteran ball player. He deserved it, man. He came to the league at a late age. He deserves it, man. Congratulations, PJ Tucker. Excellent job by the Rockets signing a veteran guy for your locker room. A great leader in the locker room. Excellent job.
Okay. What you thought about Danny D?
It's a good deal. It's all right. He can fit as long as he can fit in the system. He's not going to be taking the jump shots. He can defend and rebound because that's what they're going to need. All them threes they're going to be trying to shoot. But yeah.
Yeah, I concur. I think the same thing. That's exactly what they needed too. The Rockets. They're another team that tends to fade playoff time because they don't really have no inside presence. So at least this helps you defensive-wise, especially with D'Antoni, who really doesn't preach defense. So you need individual defenders that can actually help him out. So I thought it was a good move. Not extravagant deal, but it was a good deal considering everything that's going out there right now. And a few more deals that just came in. These are the last few deals, listeners. Taj Gibson recently signed for $28 million for 2 years with the T-Wolves. What you thought about that deal, Danny D?
That was a good deal. Tibby trying to get them old Chicago days back in Minnesota. He's trying to get his team together. He's going to war.
Trying to get that old thing back.
You know what I'm saying? If he said it got enough team, I'm trying to get some workers, some hard workers. We trying to go to war. We getting busy. That's a good pickup.
Yeah, I agree. But I wanted to see what they could did with Millsap. I kind of wanted Paul Millsap over Gibson.
Oh, well, so, yeah.
I would have preferred that.
You know what it is? But you probably the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. So if you couldn't get that, that's a nice little replacement as well, though. What you thought about that, Flo?
I was definitely surprised that Taj Gibson, as the agent, couldn't reach out on an agreement on a deal with OKC because he stated that he wanted to come back with them. But all in all, it's a good deal by Minnesota. You got him for 2 years only. That's definitely a good deal. Got a veteran guy, one of Thibodeau's guys. Veteran presence in the locker room, very good defender, hard worker, high energy. I think he's good for 10 points a night and 6 to 8 rebounds. Definitely a lot of playoff experience with the Bulls. That's what Thibodeau needs. He needs some players that's played in the playoffs. He needs some veterans.
Definitely does. And Tibbs loved the vets, so that's right up his alley. And another signing that had me scratching my head a little bit was the Bulls signing Cristano Felicio for like 4 years at $32 million. What do you thought about that, Flo?
Honestly, no disrespect to Mr. Feliciano, but I never really heard of him. This is like
well either. I just saw him a little bit last year.
Let me ask you a question, guys. Is Phil Jackson running the Chicago Bulls front office also?
He's like a poor man looking at Taj Gibson when I seen him. The numbers wasn't that great. It was only like maybe 4.8 points or something. Or like same thing with the boards. It wasn't that special. So, I mean, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to have, like a backup to like Brook Lopez and everything. I mean, not Brook Lopez, his brother Robin Lopez and everything of that nature. But I thought that was a lot of money to get to a guy who just really starting out. Unless they see something every day in practice or something. I don't know. What you thought about Danny D?
Yeah, no bueno. I ain't with that one.
Another guy who got signed was Nene for 3 years, $11 million to the, what was that, Houston Rockets, Flo?
Yeah, that's correct. Houston Rockets.
Okay, what you thought about that one? That recently was breaking news, too.
Finally, Nene comes back to Houston. He never wanted to leave. I know he had a big issue earlier because originally he had agreed to a 4-year, $15 million deal. But there was some situation with the rules where it's like an over 38 rule. So unfortunately, they couldn't agree on a 4-year deal. So he took a lesser deal to come back. So it's a 3-year deal. A veteran guy. Historically, he's been hurt over the years. But again, rebounder, and he could score on the low post.
Yeah, that's true. And another guy, big body, also a defender. What you thought about Danny D?
I say got it from cheap. Not a lot of money. You didn't break the bank. You got also a big guy to just clog up the paint and rebound and defend. Have another body out there, big body to move around. Not that bad.
Yeah, I agree. He knows the system too, so it's a win-win. Maybe not so much for Nene, but for Houston at this point. And the last guy I want to talk about who just signed was Serge Ibaka for $65 million for 3 years with the Raptors. He re-signed with them. What you guys think about that? Starting with you, Danny D.
Yeah, $65 million. Ibaka didn't show me nothing last year in that playoffs. The last playoffs right now. He didn't. He just faded away. 65, I get maybe this is thinking about potential future because I would have dropped that maybe. I would have did maybe 55, maybe 40 for Ibaka. Maybe a 2-year deal because he really didn't show me anything. Maybe I have to get used to the system. So hopefully it works out for him.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I definitely did 2 years instead. I thought that was a little too much for Ibaka. He got a lot to show to me. What do you think about it, Flo?
I like Serge Ibaka. I thought it was a good trade for Toronto, but the problem is they re-signed him for a lot of money. That's a lot of money. You're giving a max. It's almost like max money you're giving to a player that's not a number one or number two option on your team. That's a lot of money, man. Definitely a lot of money. I'm happy he gets to he re-signed with Toronto, but that is a lot of money.
Definitely. And just some of the rumored signs and trades. Kyle Lowry is supposed to be signed with the Raptors, not a done deal yet. So that's a big push for them. Big plus, for them if it actually works out to me. Also, Iman Shumpert is supposed to be traded to the Rockets as well. That's rumored. And Rajon Rondo was released from the Bulls. Any thoughts regarding these rumored signings and trades? Anything else y'all might want to add that we haven't spoke about already? Starting with you, Flo.
LA, what I want to mention for the Knicks, first thing first, there's some rumors or rumbling that they're supposed to meet with Miami Heat starting shooting guard Dion Waiters. They're supposed to meet. I know that Miami would love to re-sign him. They went out to the West Coast to meet with him, but they've already told him that they're not interested in giving him a contract until they get a yes or no from Gordon Hayward. That's one. Two, I know that the Knicks reached out to Sacramento Kings point guard Darren Collison and also former Chicago Bull Rajon Rondo. I know they reached out to these gentlemen. Okay. My opinion, LA, the Knicks, I definitely think they need one veteran on their team, one more veteran on their team, and a young player. Hopefully, they can go after like a shooting guard, Ben McLemore, on a cheap contract. Maybe offer him a flyer, 1-year deal, maybe $5-6 million, and maybe hopefully they have money left over and go after like a Rajon Rondo on a cheap deal. Maybe 2 years with an option after the first year for maybe 12 to 14 mil, if it's possible.
Yeah, we talked about this previously, Flo. I agree with that. That's definitely what I would like the Knicks to do, especially McLemore, just for, Mr. Nets. That's his guy. A little shout out to Mr. Nets. We want to take one of your guys off your hands. But he's a cheap guy, backup, especially if you can't get Holiday. I wouldn't mind seeing that, looking more at the numbers and things of that nature. But my real player I would like to see is Rondo. I think he would be a good fit for a cheap deal. I don't want to have him here for 2 or 3 years because you never know what Rondo you're going to get sometime. If he's motivated, he can play well. If he's not, he can pout sometimes. So, but with the way he's physically made, it's very similar to Frankie on a lot of levels. So I think he'd be a good mentor to Frankie. They both had the long arms, the wingspan. He could try to mentor him a little bit. Hopefully that will work out. And I really don't want Frankie doing a lot of the heavy lifting early because I don't want him to get burnt out in the grind of the NBA. I want to learn a little bit while he also learns the game a little more NBA style. What you think about that, Danny D, and some of the rumors and signs I spoke about previously?
Yeah, any of those guys would be good. If the money issue, they probably want more money. If we have cap space to get those guys, Deion Waiters would be a great addition to pick up. If we have the funds to get him. Rondo can run the system, depending on how much you want to give him, things like that, and if his head is going to be in the right place. Because I know another thing we forgot to mention for Drew, because he signed back with the Pelicans. So,
yeah, Drew Holiday, that's true too. Because he signed for 5 years, $126 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. They got a lot of money. So that's what I'm saying. These are the things that are out there. People see the money and things like that. So it has to be a good system. But any of those guys would be a great pickup for the Knicks. Because they actually can play, but is their head going to be in there? Are they willing to play and ball out?
That's true. Drew Holiday was another guy that benefited from the way the system is right now. Because they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They had to make something. And they didn't have no cap space. So they was able to go over with him. And you got to have a point guard with Davis and Boogie Cousins over there. So that was a good move for them. That basically priced out the Knicks at that point. So, and also for Shumpert, anything Cleveland get at this point is good for Shumpert because he has not been the same player. That's one thing with that. And definitely the Raptors should sign Lowry back, like I stated earlier. But anything you want to add with that, guys? Or that we like to see the Knicks to get, or NBA rumors or signs we didn't talk about?
Yes, LA.
Go ahead, Flo.
I just want to see within the next week or two. I would love to see what takes place with a couple players that we didn't mention yet. Starting small forward for the Washington Wizards, Otto Porter, who's a restricted free agent, and also one of my favorite players that I like a lot, the Detroit Pistons starting shooting guard, KCP, Contavious Caldwell-Pope. Definitely, I'm a big fan of him. So I'm just curious to see where those two guys go via free agency.
No, I hear you with that. Also, Gordon Hayward, he's still the big quarter in the air waiting to see where it's going to drop. Right now, like Miami leading a little bit. Pat Riley worked his magic, so we'll see how well he worked it. And, still got Boston, still seeing what's going to happen with that. So, still got a lot of little moves that's going on. It's just going real quick, though. I'm shocked so many people signed so early. But, that's the way it is, guys. That was the NBA free agency period. And listeners, this is a little bit more extra for our NBA sporting news and weekly review. We went through things a little quick regarding the Chris Paul trade. We want to delve into that a little bit deeper. And what else you want to add to that, Flo, regarding Chris Paul and the reason why you think he got traded from the Clippers to the Rockets?
LA, I honestly believe this deal was all about Doc Rivers. What happened early in the season, they had a deal on the table to get Carmelo Anthony going to the Clippers. And the centerpiece in that deal was Doc Rivers' son, Austin Rivers. Chris Paul was furious that Doc did not want to give up his son. I think right then and there, Chris Paul had his decision made that he realized Doc is not about winning. All he's about is about just selling tickets. So at the end of the season was over, I think Chris Paul said, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. Doc, trade me to the Rockets because I was going to meet with them and get whatever you can get for me. I'm done with this team. I don't want no part of this team whatsoever.
Yeah, that's something I also read too, Flo, regarding Doc Rivers and Chris Paul having a little beef regarding that. I think that definitely played a role in it, a part in it. But like you said, I think it was different factors that went into it as well. I just think he saw the writing on the wall with that team as well. This team they had their chances. This is as far as they're going to get right now. Going while they're getting as good. This team, the Houston Rockets, I still believe is a better team right now than the Clippers. I think they got more pieces. They're more of a full team. So I think that's one thing he was looking at. He can actually fit in there better with James Harden being so bad in the clutch. And, CP3 is a much better clutch player as well. So it's better for him to be on display, showing other teams what he can do and how he can add to a team. So I think that was a big thing going to it as well. Anything else you add to what we spoke about with CP3, Danny D?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a mixture of both, because it's CP3, it's a conflict of interest. You have Doc, even though he says not no favoritism and things like that, Doc is your son. You're not going to do any harm for your son. You're going to have him close to you. And you think about it, too. I was listening to another podcast, another interview they was having. Doc basically saved and revived Austin Rivers' career. Because if it wasn't for Doc, Austin Rivers wouldn't even be in the NBA right now.
And he definitely got a contract he got. I can tell you that.
Definitely not. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can understand where Chris is coming from. He probably that left a taste in his mouth. He's like, oh, okay, I see what you're trying to do over here, Doc. And other factors too. Them losing to Houston 3-1, which is a bit. I still don't understand how they collapsed on that one because they were supposed to win that year. So a lot of factors and Blake not being there. So he probably thought, like you said, a change of scenery. That and Doc, everybody getting on his nerve and things like that. He's like, yo, I got to get out of here, man. It's not for me no more.
And also, I think the friendship with James Harden and Trevor Ariza made it seem like it's a more comfortable place for him right now, at least for 1 year, And you never know. They might add some more players, too. I mean, right now, they've been very busy, as we just spoke about early in the podcast. So definitely see what's going to happen with that team. It's very interesting to see what happens. You got a Hall of Fame talent added to that roster. I still worry about the defense a little bit with Patrick Beverly. I think they're going to miss him, but we're going to see what happens with that team, And anything else we're going to have regarding the Paul George trade? I know we wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that, fellas. So on with you, Flo. Anything else we add to the Paul George trade?
LA, I think that OKC got the best of this deal in this Paul George trade. The reason why I say that because, once again, you're getting a rental player. You put him on a team with Russell Westbrook and see how far they can go. Westbrook needed a sidekick. He lost one. He lost one in KD going to Golden State. I think Paul George, when push come to shove, Paul George performs in OKC and he's happy with this direction with the team and he likes Westbrook. You never know. Westbrook might convince him to re-sign with his organization. We all know that Westbrook was offered another extension that he refused to sign for this present moment. So you never know. This is actually a great deal for me, in my opinion, which favors OKC. Good deal by OKC.
No, I agree, because we spoke about it earlier, and I still think it favors them just because, I'm thinking about it a little more with Paul George and OKC. It's good for Westbrook. I'm happy for him, but I'm still going with the other team. I'm going with right now that
Indiana.
Indiana. You didn't have no leverage with this team right now. Like I said before, the agent already told you he was going to leave. Basically, you only had 1 year left under him. This team was between a rock and a hard place right now. You needed at least one player to come out of this to say, all right, we can build a little bit around him with the players they already had with Indiana. So, I don't know. I disagree with that. I think it's okay for them if it works out, he resigns. Then I think that's a big plus for them because you're getting like a top 15 player maybe in that regards. But if he doesn't, I don't see how that's a big deal for them either way with that. And now you're going to have Westbrook leaving. I don't know where that leaves you right there, I mean, Westbrook could still decide to leave if he wants after this year. He hasn't re-signed the extension yet. What do you think about Danny D?
It's a gambler's chance, man. It's off a probability. You're taking a gamble. Like you said, you got to hope, but then again, you got to think about it. I got to take a gamble because if not, Westbrook's he didn't sign. That's the main thing. Westbrook did not sign. So like, damn, man, he ain't signed yet. Just won the MVP, did the great speech and things like that. So, all right, we got to get him somebody. Oladipo, yeah, I guess. So listen, we'll swing these two, try to get Paul George, and hopefully things will work out. If not, he was going to leave anyway.
No, I agree. I think it's a better move for them, for the Thunder, just because of talent. But I'm just thinking Indiana, it's just hard for them to win that deal either way. So I'm still saying Thunder win the deal because Paul George is a much better player than Oladipo. No disrespect to that. But Indiana got the best they could do if he wasn't going to try to trade him to Boston. Or in the East, like you said before, Flo, you didn't want him in the same conference and deal with him all throughout the year. So to me, at least you got to play that actually you can build around with what they have in Indiana and two players that actually can make your roster. So to me, I didn't see what else Indiana had another choice to go to. I'm not giving it for Kevin Love. I'm not making that deal for Cleveland. So, I mean, whatever move you want to do, Flo, other than that. Speaking of Indiana.
They didn't have no choice because it would have been hard for Paul George to recruit potential free agents going to Indiana. LA, you mentioned this in the previous podcast.
Exactly.
So I think Indiana take the best deal possible. They got whatever they can get in return. I really believe that at the end of the day, they really didn't want to see Paul George, 4 or 5 times a year. The best thing to do is ship him off to the West Coast. You only have to deal with him twice a year.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a win-win at this point. What they need to do was get rid of Paul George a year earlier. That was the thing. Once you felt Paul George wasn't going to be signed, that was the thing. You got to make sure these guys are going to be signed like 2 years ahead of time at this point now. Because when you get this 1 year, these guys are just pulling, just letting the string roll out basically at this point. So it's like, where else can you go? Once they got 1 year and he come out and say he don't want to be there. That's the thing. He could have just said behind closed doors, guys, I'm not coming back. And then you actually could have made your move throughout the season. Maybe did it during the All-Star break right before that. And it could have got more. But you're doing it now when everybody know he's leaving. I know Danny Ainge, he's not going to give you nothing at that point. He's going to give you what he want to give you. So I'm not just setting these other teams up. No. But, that's just how it is with that right now, guys. Like I said, you got to know where these guys at. This is what you're going against. We stated this previously podcast. It's an arms war, and that's what these teams doing. These players want to stack up, and they want to make their teams themselves, basically, at this point. But it is one other thing I want to talk about. I thought about just now, guys. And it's the potential trade I had looked up, and I just want to see what y'all thought about that previously. And it was a trade for my man, DeAndre Jordan. One of the top centers in the league. And I was thinking about a potential trade for the Boston Celtics. If he was traded for Avery Bradley, Tyler Zeller, and Jaylen Brown, or either Jay Crowder. Either one, Brown or Crowder. They both work money-wise. And I was trying to think, do you think this trade would help both teams? Once again, it'd be DeAndre Jordan for Avery Bradley, Tyler Zeller, and let's say Jaylen Brown. What do you think about that deal, Danny D?
It's a great move for Boston, and they can either take less or give a draft pick in there, because now you can move Horford to the 4, have DeAndre have the middle. That'd be a monster. That'd be a scary team. That'd be a very, very scary team.
I agree, and also looked at it from the Clippers' point that at least with Avery Bradley, you got a 1 year deal with him. You can decide to re-sign him if you want. He could replace Chris Paul. I really don't want, no respect to Austin Rivers, but I really don't want him as my starting point guard. And you also got Jaylen Brown. He's a young guy that can fit in there as well, to help build around Blake Griffin. Since you kept him, you need some other talent that can be there that can help him out. Tyler Zeller is a 1 year deal with $8 million. He's there just for the money. You can re-sign for cheap. That's up to you. I would have just let him go unless you want to come back for cheap. But I thought it was a good move. Also, DeAndre Jordan is only signed for 2 years for $22.642 million and change. I don't think he's going to re-sign with this team. I think in the back of his mind, he kind of feel like he should have went to Dallas. This did not work out for him, to be honest with you. That last 12 o'clock midnight raid did not work out, man. Chris Paul is gone. And Blake Griffin, has been injured since he re-signed, basically. So what you think about this deal, Flo?
LA, I agree with you. If you get Jaylen Brown, for the Clippers, I think it's a good deal for both teams. With the Celtics, like Danny D mentioned, you finally get a missing piece. You slide Horford back at the 4. You have DeAndre Jordan controlling the middle, playing good defense as always. Horrible free throw shooter, but again, that will help Boston against Cleveland in the playoffs. That's a good deal for both teams. With the Clippers, if Avery Bradley stinks, let him walk, free up some money. Same thing with Tyler Zeller. You don't have to resign him. You let him play out the year, let him walk, free up some extra money. The big deal in that trade is probably getting Jaylen Brown back. Acquiring Jaylen Brown is actually the best in that deal. And like Danny D mentioned, hopefully you can get an extra pick.
Exactly. And I think it's a move I just saw that could help both teams, because I really look at Boston. They got a lot of chips. And now with Tatum, you really don't need Jaylen Brown at this point. You got a lot of small forwards at this point. You actually got another draft pick coming up. So you got to give up something to get DeAndre Jordan. He's worth it. He's a defensive player. He rebounds the ball well. And I really don't like, Kelly Olynyk getting that much burn on their team. It's a legitimate sin. Like you say, you can move Horford to the position he's supposed to be, power forward. And the guy can move. He can play defense. I think Brad Steve would bring out the best in him. So I think it's a move that actually helps both teams at this point. So, let us know, listeners, what you think about that deal also. But anything else you want to add to the NBA, sporting news and review section? And our little extra, thing we added for the listeners. Go ahead, Flo.
LA, one thing I thought about a couple years ago, which I didn't understand. When the Pacers lost that Game 7 to Miami Heat and LeBron James, why didn't they break up the team officially? They got rid of Roy Hibbert, but they never got rid of Paul George. That team wasn't going nowhere. They should have moved Paul George when they had the opportunity to move him.
I hear you. I think the same thing happened to them that happened to Chicago Bulls with Jimmy Butler. That was their only star, their main star. They built around them. And, a lot of teams and fans go for their stars. Same thing kind of happened to the Knicks with Melo. And you built around a star who's not a franchise player and that he's not a number one star. That was the thing. He's not a number one star. You couldn't get the number one star to go with him. Had you got a number one star to go with him, it might have been a totally different ball game, which is, OKC is hoping that's going to happen with Westbrook. I'm anxious to see how that's going to work out too. So that was no. Go ahead, Danny D.
That's the thing, because the only thing it broke up because you remember it all figured out because with the Indiana thing too, they got rid of Roy, but then you remember Lance got selfish. You remember he thought he was more than what he was worth, and he went to Charlotte not knowing that he could have fit in the system.
Exactly.
Because then he walked, and then he had George Hill. Because if they'd have kept that core together, it would have been okay. But then a lot of people left. Lance left, George left, and Evan Turner left.
And then the coach
they all
left too after that.
Yeah,
they
broke up. Yeah, so. And that's the thing. But like you said, too, Ellen, not to cut you off, everybody talking about the portrait. I don't see how that's going to work. KD left Westbrook because Westbrook was hogging the ball, things like that. And Paul George is another person who needs the ball in his hand. How that's going to work? I'm confused how that's still going to work. He's going to have to change his game.
Well, you're hoping Westbrook will learn from that. That's the thing everybody's hoping. Like, you can't do this by yourself. You can put up tremendous numbers, MVP, but you ain't winning no games. And you hope he learned from playing with Durant. He can play with that. He can get assists. And it's like we already see what Westbrook can do. We know you're MVP player. So now it's about winning at this point. So you're hoping he realize that and say, let me stick it to KD and the rest of them by winning. That's the biggest, way to make them eat crow. It's success, as Frank Sinatra said. That's the greatest revenge is success. So that's the thing you're looking at with this team, and you're hoping you're going to learn from that. Because if them two work together well, and you add one more player, that's going to be a strong team right there, man. Because both of those are top talents. I'd say no way from Paul George talent-wise. I'm just saying he's not a top one player on your team. He's not a 1A. But you have him as your second best player on your team or your third, then you got something you got to build around. But like you said, Danny D, they both going to have to share the ball. They'll have to adjust their game to make it work for them. Not sure if they're going to do that, but like I said, unless you want to see KD and the company keep winning every year, you have to do something to try to put a chink in that armor. What you want to add to that, Flo?
LA, I just have some breaking news. I just want to put out there right now. Kyle Lowry just resigned.
I ain't got no sound effect for that, man.
Oh, Kyle Lowry just re-signed with the Toronto Raptors. 3 years, $100 million. Just re-signed Toronto Raptors.
For how much?
3 years, $100 million.
Whoo, that's a lot. 3 years, $100 million? Dang.
Yes, sir. What's your take on that, gentlemen?
Toronto got money. I guess they re-sign their own players so they can go over. But, I guess that's something they had to do, See how they already signed Ibaka and everything like that and DeRozan. But that's their team now. That you can't really do much else unless you make a major trade. What do you think about that, Danny D?
That's right. Like I said, they better hope that's the team they better hope that's the team they want. And they better hope what's his name, Jared Carroll steps up and start playing the money they gave him before and stop playing like a bum. Everybody will stop playing. Because if you think about it, guys, they regressed last year. They did worse than last year than they did the year before they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So they regressed. So hopefully they can do it out.
That's true. Anything else well with that, Flo?
That's a lot of money, but Toronto, like I said earlier, gentlemen, they overpaid for Serge Ibaka. That's a lot of money, like you guys mentioned. It's their team right now. Number one option is going to be DeRozan. Number two, Lowry. The number three option is Serge Ibaka. It's their team. they're going to have to go after Cleveland. They're not breaking up this team. They're going to have to go after Cleveland.
Yeah. We're going to see what happens. See what happens with Cleveland, too. I got a feeling LeBron's getting that itchy feeling again. He's going to make that move in another year or so. But, we'll see what happens. Anything else you want to add to NBA Extra, Sporting News and Reviews? Otherwise, that's it for today, fellas. All right. Thank you, listeners. That was our extra coverage for NBA Sporting News and Reviews. And lastly, I just want to talk about the recent NBA awards that were announced on June 26, 2017. And we talked about this previously, guys. In episode 15, we went over this real quick. Make sure y'all check that out, listeners. We was really in depth and thorough when we talked about who we thought would win and our predictions overall. So make sure to check that out. It's around the 30-minute mark and 49 seconds, episode 15. And this was recently stated during this last week or so who actually won the awards. So, let's just go through that real quick, guys. And Russell Westbrook won the MVP award. Draymond Green won Defensive Player of the Year. Giannis, the Greek Freak, Antetokounmpo, won the Most Improved Player. Eric Gordon won the Sixth-Man Award. Malcolm Brogdon won the Rookie of the Year. Mike D'Antoni won the Coach of the Year. Bob Myers of the Warriors won Executive of the Year. Monty Williams won the Sega Strong Award. And Bill Russell won the Lifetime Achievement Award. So what are your thoughts, fellas, regarding the NBA award show as a whole, as well as the actual winners of the season-ending awards? Starting with you, Flo.
Congratulations to Russell Westbrook. Excellent job. He deserved the MVP awards. Now, Kawhi Leonard got robbed. He should have won Defensive Player of the Year award. He definitely got robbed. Also, congratulations to the Greek Freak for the Most Improved Player of the Year award. He deserved it. Excellent job. He definitely, came out as a player and showed everyone that he can actually play in this league. He definitely looks like a superstar. Congratulations to him.
Okay. What about you, Danny D? What you thought about that award show as a whole and the actual winners?
Yeah, the award show as a whole was all right. It was a little bit late because the MVP race was out of context and things like that because everybody's worried about the playoffs and the championship and things like that. So I see what they were trying to do. Get everybody together and things like that. Big shout out to Russell Westbrook. Saw a different side of him. He got to talk about his wife and his family, things like that. Overall it was all right. Progress. But I told y'all guys, what me and Flo said. I told you, man, the process wasn't gonna get that award, man. He wasn't gonna get that.
You talking about Rob Bamboozle. That was the process right there. He got bamboozled. I'm going to jump on that. I'm going to jump on that, fellas. Because, see, I went back and listened on episode 15 what the listeners got to do. And doing that, I went 4-3 with the predictions. And I should have went 5-2. And the thing was, we all picked the process. Once again, everybody
said he wasn't supposed to get it. We told you he wasn't supposed to get it. He wasn't supposed to get that.
But we all picked the process before that he was hurt during that time. So what happened, fellas?
But listen, man, we came to our senses. Come on, man. You're not gonna get employee of the, listen, you can't get employee of the year or you only worked half the year.
It ain't no rule in that, man. It ain't like he played 2 games. But I should have went 5-2 in that, man.
Hey, man, listen. This is not like the Pacquiao fight, brother. We know what we're talking about. We know what's going on here, brother. All right?
Oh, man, don't even get me into that one, man. That was crazy.
All right?
But Westbrook, I'm going to give a big shout out to that. Definitely deserved it. I picked him as well. And the award show was pretty good. It was just too long to me. The things that actually stood out was Westbrook's speech, like you said, Danny D. And also, I thought the Sega Award when Monty Williams, that was really touching how that went. If you look back at his story, that was really, really tragic, man. Just looking at that and just seeing the strength that guy got and his family. It was worth seeing just to see that part of the show. If you didn't see our listeners, go back and look at it just for that part. It's the last part of the show. And, this is my best go out to Monty Williams, former Knick as well. That was something to see us also. But just awards-wise, Giannis definitely deserved it. D'Antoni, I definitely picked him as well. Bob Myers, I thought he should have won it as well. Like you said, Draymond Green, I did not pick him. I didn't think he deserved it. I thought Rudy Gobert should have had that. Eric Gordon, I take that at the end of the day. But I definitely thought my man, the process, should have won it. Still believe he should have won it. He played 31 games, yes. He averaged 20 points, 7.8 boards, 2 assists, and 2.5 blocks. To Malcolm Brogdon, in the same minutes, 26.4, had 10.2 points, 2 boards, 4 assists, and 1.1 steal. Come on, man. Stop stop it.
Hey, man, that man played in the playoffs, man, and he was balling out.
Thank you.
Right? That man was
And
balling
you had
out.
him this year, you would still take the process over that guy any day of the week, man. But that's all right. He can have that. Process is going to be winning a lot more awards before his career is over. Believe that. So, that's all I want to talk about with that guy. Anything else y'all want to add with the NBA Awards show? If not, we'll just move on to our closing remarks for today's show. And for the closing remarks for today's show, starting with you, Danny D.
So I want to thank all you guys and the listeners. Keep on prescribing things like that. And I also want to add, too, if I'm a free agent, I am not going to the West. I am staying in the East or coming to the East because it's stockpile, and I got to get this All-Star ballot, and I got to make this money. Stay East. Don't go out to the West. Keep on subscribing, man, and keep on showing the love, guys. Appreciate it.
That's true. Definitely, especially the All-NBA teams and then all the money that goes towards that as well. This is what happens. We talked about this previously. All these teams stockpiling, and they stockpiling, locking up the West right now. So, we're going to see what happens. What you think about it, Flo? Any your closing remarks for today's show?
LA, I want to thank all the listeners. Please continue to tell a friend and subscribe. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for allowing me to be part of this great show, Knicks Fandom, which is a podcast for NBA fans and for Knicks fans all over and across the globe.
Okay, thank you, Flo. And, my closing remarks for today's show, this is definitely our scheduled last show for a while. For a while, listeners, we're taking a brief hiatus unless something major happens in the NBA and the Knicks specifically. So make sure to stay tuned to our Facebook page and Twitter account regarding any and all announcements. As always, thanks again, Danny D and Flo, for your dedication and diligence. It's much appreciated. Big thank you to our dedicated listeners. Please continue to subscribe, share, and leave a positive review on iTunes. It's much appreciated. Make it a good one, and see ya.